Justin, send me a text, but let me ask, if it's holding signal here, calling into the station, and clearly we have no problem with the receiver at the station, and we have no problem with the phone line here, so it has to be the receiver there. I don't see how it's even a question. Why don't we just have them send it off from Auburn? I mean, this is pretty clear. Send me a text. Let me know if I'm right. Good morning. Welcome into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown, live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill, as we are each and every Saturday from 10 to 12 in downtown Alexander City, Alabama. Love to hear from you out there. 800-782-0108, 256-234-6221 here locally. And, Luke, it's a little bit of a dull or a dwell in the middle of the football season for college football, especially if you're an SEC fan. But high school football is in full swing, so we'll start off the program today talking high school football. Before we get started in our local area games, whether it be Benjamin Russell or over there in the Lee County area and some of the surrounding areas there that we're covering on 95.9, some of your thoughts from last night as y'all did the AHSA Radio Network scoreboard show.
Well, first of all, I would like to say the one score that we probably should have harped on a little more that had the best backstory was Clay Chalkville and Huffman. Of course, Huffman turned in Clay Chalkville for playing a reserve defensive lineman back in 2011, disqualifying Clay Chalkville from going to the playoffs that year. They may have won 6A. Back then in 2011, they had a fantastic team. And so there's the grudge match. Last night, Clay Chalkville ends up winning 65-14, and JJ looked at me and said, they didn't show him a lot of mercy. I said, no, I think that is showing them a lot of mercy. I think Clay Chalkville could have scored 120 if they had wanted to. Opelika continuing to roll on. How about Central Phoenix City looking good from Thursday? And they come in now, and they're going to play Prattville next week. Prattville, who blows out Smith Station 48-0. On the heels of Amonte Cabin committing to Louisville, you would think maybe the Smith Station defense is going to step it up and play well for him after his big news. Instead, it's the absolute opposite. St. Paul's gets a big win over Jackson. That was a game 1 versus 2 in 5A, the first time those two teams have ever played each other. So that was a big game as well. There were a lot of big games in high school football around the state.
Your thoughts? I know that the big storyline, at least for 6A over the last 15 years, has been Hoover High School. As you watch and as you kind of filter in what's coming in on Friday night, we know they lost 2 games out of state to start the season. But how close is the rest of the state, in your opinion, coming to Hoover, especially up in the northern half of the state? Do you see some teams that can knock them off this year, Luke?
Yeah, in fact, I said last night on the program that, okay, if you take out the preseason biases And if you say, okay, I'm going to just rank 7A based on what I've seen, I don't think there's any doubt you put Central Phoenix City number 1. Bob Jones is number 1 right now just by a hair over Hoover, and that's because Bob Jones is undefeated and Hoover did lose those 2 out-of-state games. But it took an act of Congress to get Hoover to move back 1 spot because everybody's so used to Hoover's being there. I mean, it's hard to get that out of sports writers' brains who don't get to see Hoover every day. If you're in Mobile and you don't get to see Hoover play all the time, and you look at you just are looking at 7A trying to rank it, and you say, okay, they're 1 and 2, but they did lose to 2 very good teams, and they're always good, so I'm going to put them at number 2. And in high school, rankings don't matter quite as much as you know. But I would say I would put Central Phoenix City number 1, maybe Bob Jones number 2. I could make a case for somebody like a Baker right now, even though they're unranked. They're 4-0 now. They beat McGill last night by 10 points. They look very, very good. So there's a lot of things that I would do that wouldn't have Hoover at number 1.
If you've been out at high school games, if you've got comments, you've got questions, we'd love to hear from you. 800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. One storyline I think may be funny as we close out the season, Luke. Class 6A, you've got 2 teams that are perennial powers, Opelika High School, and I'm going to throw Spanish Fort in there also. Kind of humorous to me that if you look at those 2 teams and I bring up Class 7A, where would you rank all of these teams? I'd like to know where Opelika and Spanish Fort would fall into the mix if they were in 7A this year. Just some of your thoughts there.
How about Clay Chalkville and Shades Valley?
Good point,
I mean, let me tell you something. Shades Valley, don't sell them short. They're ranked ahead of Opelika right now, and I know some people probably in our listening audience think that may be a little crazy considering Opelika has looked fantastic. They shut out BRHS last week. They shut out their opponent, Pill City, last night, 53-0. So Opelika's defense is definitely stout, but Shades Valley, to me, has the leader for Mr. Alabama football, and that's Keith Mixon. I talk about him all the time. They've got Darren Payne, who's a 5-star defensive tackle, and they've got a quarterback named Rashad Louis. I think they've got a 3-headed monster on that team. They play a team out of Louisiana today at 5 o'clock. But these other 4 teams, Spanish Fort, Clay Chalkville, Shades Valley, and Opelika, I think any one of those teams could move up a classification, and I wouldn't be surprised to see any of those 4 playing for a state championship. And I really believe all 4 of those teams could beat Hoover this year.
256-234-6221, 800-782-0108. Let's start over in the Lee County area, and let's start with some big football games. I want to kick it off with Opelika. That's the team that everybody is pointing to defensive-wise here in the state of Alabama. Another outstanding game is they take down Pell City 53-0 last night. 2 consecutive shutouts for the Opelika Bulldogs. Listen to this stat line from Matthew Christian. 3-year starter at quarterback, 6'3", about 205, an outstanding baseball player also. Last night he was 13 of 14 for 196 yards and 3 touchdowns. A couple of other stats in this game that will take you back. 341 yards of total offense for Opelika in the first half, 1 total yard of offense for Pell City in the first half, 17 total yards of offense for Pell City in the entire game. I saw Opelika up close and personal last week. I'm proud of Benjamin Russell for the way that we play on the offensive and defensive fronts, but I've got to tout that defensive line for Opelika. It's one of the best I've seen. We've seen some great ones here in the state. Whitlow's outstanding. I wish he was staying in the state rather than going over to South Carolina next year. Jared Gentry's an outstanding defensive tackle at about 310 pounds. Luke, they've got the hosses. They've got a 3-year starter and quarterback. They're dynamic at receiver. They got Drew Kaiser at center, who I think will be the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star Game center for the state.
Josh Johnson at running back.
Yeah, they've got them. I mean, so Opelika, they got a good chance this year.
They've got a very good team to challenge, and I guess it would be fitting if Opelika goes back to Jordan-Hare Stadium and plays for a state championship this year, and this time they wouldn't have to face Hoover. They probably would face somebody like a Spanish Fort, I guess. I think Opelika would be in they'd be in the South too, so they'd play South. Yeah, they'd play them before that.
Yeah, they'd have to play them before.
They may have to play Clay Chalkville then.
Yeah, 256-234-6221. As Clay Chalkville could come through, Shades Valley could go through in the north also. So you've already mentioned that.
How about this for a Final Four? I mean, it works out just right. If you had a Final Four of Spanish Fort against Opelika and Clay Chalkville against Shades Valley, the winners of those 2 games meet in Jordan-Hare Stadium. That, to me, would be the most dynamic, most fun classification of all of them. 7A's got a little bit of intrigue just because nobody really knows what anybody's got. And 5A with St. Paul's, but St. Paul's manhandled Jackson so well the other night, and then Viger at number 3, they lose to Murphy. They get blown out. I mean, they had some injury issues, but at the same time, you're not supposed to lose to Murphy 33-6.
Luke, I know you're the recruitnik of the bunch. Brett tries to keep up, but he doesn't do a very good job of that, keeping up with you. I want to throw a name out there. Saw him last week, and I don't know where he ends up, but he is as good as I've seen at linebacker, and that's Roy Yancey for Opelika. 6'1", 190. He'll play safety or somewhere in college. Luke, on the hoof, let me tell you, if you go out on the field and you watch Opelika play, they've got a big defensive front, so they keep him off. But he is so physical, and he's so good in space, and he makes up ground so quickly in space. I don't know how many tackles he had 2 weeks ago against Benjamin Russell. I'm going to guess 15 at the minimum. And plus, we're a great offense for a linebacker to want to play against. But I saw a recruiting ranking where it had him, I think, the 41st ranked prospect in the state. He's a 3-star prospect. Just some quick insight on him. You know anything about him?
I don't know a ton about him. I did see him at the Champions Challenge. I thought he was a little underrated, too. I mean, if you try and do a quick search for him, you're not going to find out a lot. But he is the kind of guy that is kind of a high school hero. I look at him, he's Keaton Anderson light.
Yeah.
The kid committed to Alabama from Florence. I think he's kind of in that same mold. He probably doesn't have all the athletic ability that Keaton Anderson does. But if you're a part of this defense, some coach somewhere ought to give you a look.
Yeah, big 3-star recruit, and we'll see where he ends up. But Roy Yancey, put that name down, an outstanding player for Opelika. Auburn picks up their first victory of the season over Jeff Davis, 51-14. Tyus Flakes, who was the storyline for that offense for Auburn that went to a 6A state final last year before losing to Hoover. As a sophomore, Tyus Flakes is a junior this year. He had 192 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns last night. First win of the season, Luke. Been a long time, all the way back to 1980, that we have seen a kid or seen this this Auburn team start off 0-3 to start the season. So they get off the snide and pick up a win last night.
Yeah, they did, and I was always glad to see that. Look, here's the problem we thought about with a few of these teams last night, that if you're 3 games, for some teams 4 games in, and you're 1-3 or 0-4, I mean, you may start seeing some teams mail it in, and you don't want to see that. I want to see everybody continue to be competitive throughout the season.
And I think you've got quickly, as you're pulling up, you've got a little bit of news on Roy Yancey there.
I do, and I know this is crazy for a lot of folks out there to believe. If you saw the Benjamin Russell game, especially, or listened to Brett and Randy talk about it, I listened to your call of that game, and it sounded like the Roy Yancey show. I mean, every other word was Roy or Yancey. And I'm looking at his offers according to Rivals. Right now, he has no big-time offers. Minnesota is the only school looking at him.
I've got 24/7 up. Let me throw this one out. And on 24/7, he's having interest shown by Auburn, Georgia State, Vandy, and Western Kentucky. They've got him rated an 83%, a 3-star prospect, 6'1", 190. It's crazy, especially in these middle tier. When you get 2- and 3-star guys, one may rate him a little bit higher than another, but on the field, he's outstanding.
And Rivals has him as, they don't even have him rated, really. And that Auburn offer, I would be shocked.
It's not an offer, it's just interest.
That Minnesota might be the kind of place he needs to go, like middle tier, Big Ten, middle tier. I mean, could he do middle tier SEC? I mean, would Kentucky take a chance on him right now? I don't think so. They could do worse, but I don't think Kentucky would probably do that. It would probably behoove them. But I'll tell you who this guy's perfect for. If I'm Coach Bill Clark over at UAB, I call him right now and I say, look, you quit taking other visits, commit to me right now. I'm going to tout you like a superstar. And I think he's a perfect kind of guy to help build a foundation at UAB.
800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. Beauregard High School is off to a great start. This is a tremendous win for them last night. They pick up a victory over Dable, 14-12 last week. This week they take down number 8 Sylacauga, 30-17. Quarterback goes down last week. Have a backup come into the ball game. He's playing outstanding. His name's Quay Wright. He ran for 129 yards on 19 carries last night. Watch out for Beauregard. This has been a program that's kind of like Dable here in the Tallapoosa County region. They've been rivals also, but they've been so close, and they're talented. Once they do go over the hump, look out for them.
Yeah, really do. I love Coach Rob Carter. He's been on the program with us, and I think he's a great guy. But you look at they played last night. They played Sylacauga, who had just jumped up into the rankings. Everybody's so thrilled about Sylacauga, and here comes the Aggies. And meanwhile, Beauregard just goes out and does their thing, and Beauregard's already beaten Dadeville this year too. That's going to be a team to keep an eye on, without a doubt.
As we close out the Lee County or the close surrounding areas in Lee County, Chelsea takes down Valley 43-20. That's a big victory for Chelsea in our Benjamin Russell region and Opelika region, as Valley took down Oxford last week at home. This week they lose to Chelsea. And it sets up an outstanding game next week as Central Phoenix City takes down Leah Montgomery 43-14 on Thursday night. Last night, Prattville destroys Smith Station 48-0. Those two teams will play next week. Storyline there, Jamie DuBose going back to Prattville. He was a head coach there, won at least 2 state championships, may have won 3 as a head coach at Prattville High School. What a game this one's going to be.
I don't know what you think will be the game of the week next week. If you have another game in mind, this one's better than whatever game you're thinking of.
800-782-0108 up against our first break here on the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. We come back, we'll talk about the Tallapoosa County region games last night. Benjamin Russell High School looked as good as ever last night. Take down a scrappy Eufaula team 55-0 and only allowed 14 yards of total offense. It was an outstanding outing, and we'll talk a little bit about that. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Clear. This segment of Sports Blitz is brought to you by Alex City.
Three, two, one.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. We're live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill in beautiful downtown Alexander City, and love for you to come out, have a great lunch. $6.99 snack wing basket with a tea is the lunch special each and every time we're on. And we know a lot of you are out there in the local community, as well as riding up and down the road. You either have games here in the Alexander City community, tournaments here, jamboree games as we start youth football today. Bring your kids out in uniform. They'll eat off the kids' menu for $1.99. Great place, great local atmosphere here in Alexander City. And then back over to you quickly, Luke, as before we move over to Tallapoosa County. This is the biggest game, I think, in the state next week. It's Prattville, as they will be taking on a Central Phoenix City team that's coached by Jamie DuBose. Some unique storylines here that I'll throw out there as I'm getting some texts that are coming in. Prattville versus Central Phoenix City. Prattville will recognize the 1984 state championship team and retire two numbers for the first time in the history of the school. Those numbers will be retired are Kevin Turner's and Coach Lowe Pickett, who played and coached at Prattville and passed away several years ago. It's a great story there. Kevin Turner, I can remember growing up and watching him play running back and fullback there at Alabama. He was an outstanding player and moved on and had a great pro career also. Currently fighting ALS, and it's a tough disease, and Kevin Turner fighting it with all that he has. So a great story there. So if you're out and you're looking for a high school game to travel around and watch next week, that'll be a great one.
Yeah, to see Kevin Turner now and see what he looks like now versus what he looked like then. He was a monster on the football field, and he was one of those old school type warrior guys that I think every other team respected. He had a nice, fruitful career in the NFL. I know he spent some time with the Patriots and the Eagles, and wish him the best and good luck. I mean, I know he's got an uphill battle, but back to the Prattville game for just a second. Of course, DuBose was the coach there. He won 3 state championships in a row. He ends up stepping down. I think there was just some infighting. I don't really know the whole story. I know that there was a unique situation where it just wasn't working out. For a successful coach and a successful program, sometimes people can butt heads a little bit. He steps down. He goes to Florence. And he made Florence very, very good, very, very quickly. They came very close to beating Hoover last year in the playoffs. They had some great players.
22-21, I think, was the final.
They had the lead the whole game. And then he steps down from there, goes to Charles Henderson for a cup of coffee, and ends up getting the job at Central Phoenix City. And nobody really blamed him for that. I think Central Phoenix City is one of those coveted jobs because you know you've always got athletes. If you can coach a lick, you can coach pretty well at Central Phoenix City.
800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. We'll start here locally, Tallapoosa County region. Benjamin Russell High School goes on the road to take on normally a power. Eufaula has won 4 state championships in the history of the school, a couple of runner-ups. They've got 2 players currently in the NFL. Jarrell Jernigan's a wide receiver for the New York Giants. Courtney Upshaw was an All-American at Alabama, and he's moved on to bigger and better things in the pros as well. So off the hoof, when you're standing down there on the field last night, I looked at Brett. I said, this is going to be close. This team's 3-0 if you count the Jamboree game against Dothan that they won. So 2-0 in the regular season. It's going to be a tough one on the road. But the Wildcats play about as well as I can remember against a team that I thought that we were evenly matched with. Wildcats win 55-0 on the road at Eufaula last night. It was over early, 28 quick points in the first quarter. All Eufaula did was go backwards in the first half. We didn't have stats there with us last night, so I think in the first half they probably had -40 to -50 yards of total offense. They end up with a little over positive yards. I think 14 yards of total offense was the final number. And, Luke, it was an amazing game, amazing battle up front as our defensive front stayed in their backfield all night. I thought Q Johnson, who picked off 2 passes at outside linebacker, carried those into the end zones for touchdowns. Orlando Henderson also picked off a pass at outside backer, and he took it in. So 3 pickoffs, 4 scores last night, 4 total interceptions for the Wildcats. Tyree Gray did an outstanding job throwing the football around as well as running it. It was a good night if you're a Wildcat fan.
Yeah, I listened to some of that broadcast as well, and I think on the first play, Eufaula may have gained about 8, 9, 10 yards, something like that. And I'm thinking, oh, well, this is going to be a ball game. Next play, you follow it, snaps it over their head or pitches it back wrong, and they end up. And then next thing I know, they're about to punt from their own end zone. It seemed like, or turned it over. They may have turned it over.
Yeah, they threw an interception there.
They had 3 straight turnovers, did they not, to start the game? Was that right?
They had 4 in the first half. So yeah, I don't remember them punting too much.
It's hard. It's great that you didn't punt. It's bad that you didn't punt because you kept turning it over. But again, one thing I said on the scoreboard show is kudos to Benjamin Russell for not putting your head down after losing 23-0 to Opelika the previous week. The defense could have had a little bit of frustration. Instead, what they do is come out and get a shutout of their own. That's a big deal.
800-782-0108. If you watch the ball game, love to hear from you. Dable High School, they get off the schneid last night. Their defense continues to play outstanding football as they shut out Childersburg 15-0. But as good as the defense is playing, the offense struggling, and that's been a surprise as well as the quarterbacks have played at Dable over the last 6 or 7 years. They've had as good a run at quarterbacks. I think each one of them have been an all-state performer. C.J. Talbert last year, Kyle Caldwell the years before that, Eric Vickers before that. This offense has been dynamic, outstanding. But this year it's a struggle back there, but they do continue to play that great defense. And if the offense ever catches up, watch out for Dable, Luke.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't know that the offense can catch up to the defense this season. I mean, the defense has got a big-time head start. They win 15-0. And I heard a few reports of Anthony Jennings at the game last night that Childersburg ran away from him all night long. Then they're going to try a play-action pass and roll out his way. He forces the pressure and gets in it, and the Dadeville Tigers get an interception, so that probably wrapped that up. But I feel like this team's going to have to lean on its defense for a while. They don't need their offense to catch up. They just need their offense to do something.
A couple of more scores of interest that we'll throw out there whenever we come back from the break, and then we'll move quickly into the games today. We've got some big games on tap for college. Alabama is playing today, Auburn off, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Gus Malzahn, as I'm watching you at SEC Network, he's up there talking about the Auburn Tigers. So 800-782-0108. Love to hear from you. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown.
Clear.
But I don't know. Hello, testing. Can you hear me?
I can. What's up?
Randy told me to speak into the headphones.
Oh, okay. Probably him and Justin think so.
Yeah.
I'll stay off.
Test, 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 test. Talk.
Testing, 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 testing. Is it supposed to rain today? You know?
I don't know. How much time we got, Daniel?
Yes, it is supposed to. What are we doing? Just scores?
I'm just running down a couple of more here and then let you run down some of interest on the state. Still loud, I think. Can't tell. That loud? Over there?
Yeah.
How much time, Daniel?
$10 seconds. Okay, guys, in 3, 2, 1.
It's your thing.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. We're live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill, as we are each and every Saturday from 10 to 12. Love to hear from you. 256-234-6221. And back over to you, Luke. Some big games here in the statewide last night. Let me quickly run down some more of local interest here in the Tallapoosa County region. Again, Benjamin Russell beats Eufaula 55-0. Horseshoe Bend, big win for them. Their first of the season as they take down Lafayette 14-0. Defense stands up, plays some good ball. I think they have been playing pretty good defense the last couple of years. The offense can catch up again, much like Dable. Horseshoe Bend's got a chance to win some ball games. Tallahassee, Brandon Baines is as good a running back as we've got in the state. He has a couple of more long-distance touchdown runs last night as they take down Shelby County 42-14. Central of Coosa loses to Midfield 41-6. Elmore County gets beaten by Munford 35-14. So that'll close out some of our local area scores. Back over to you, Luke. Any games of interest that you can pass along to us statewide last night?
Well, how about Spain Park losing to Tuscaloosa County? Of course, there was a rain delay, but there was a rain delay for Tuscaloosa County, too. Tuscaloosa County's undefeated. I wouldn't be surprised if they move up into the top 10. And here's the thing for Spain Park. We talk about offensive woes for a lot of the top teams. We're mentioning Dadeville as being one of them. Heck, Hoover has had some offensive woes as well, even though they scored 35 last night. But Spain Park, they scored 5 in their first game, and now they score 7 against Tuscaloosa County. So that might be a team that's going to have some problems all year long. Central Phoenix City has no problems with offense, defense, special teams, or any of it. They beat Lee Montgomery 43-14. As the woes continue for the Montgomery area teams like Sidney Lanier, I noticed they got beat again last night. I believe Jeff Davis was beaten again. They may have played Thursday night. Lee Montgomery gets hammered. It's so sad to see. We talk about it all the time, Randy. McGill-Tulin loses to Baker, so Baker starts out 4-0, and Trey McMillan, the running back for Baker, had 313 yards rushing. That's always a big deal. I think Baker should move way up into the top 10. I think Prattville could be there, too. They defeat Smith Station 48-0, the number 9 ranked team in the state of Alabama for 7A. And then Vestavia Hills, they defeat Hewitt-Trussville 14-13 in a very sloppy game. But they get Coach Buddy Anderson his 310th win, which is a state record, and congratulations to him. They thought they may get it last week. They ended up dropping that game, but very excited for Coach Buddy Anderson.
We'd love to hear from you. If you were out at games, you got questions about high school football, call us in, 256-234-6221 here locally. Let's move over a little bit. You got one more for us?
How about 5A? I was talking about that earlier. You know, early in the season, you might have thought that 5A is the most intriguing of all the classifications, but It's not so for me. St. Paul's is clearly number 1. They defeat number 2 Jackson 34-14. So Jackson loses. Viger, the number 3 team, they lose to Murphy 33-6. Desharius Flowers is hurt. They have some other guys with some injury problems right now, but you still don't need to lose 33-6. And then Central Eau Clay loses to Leeds, who's number 1 in 4A, 28-7. So 3 of your top 4 teams in 5A all go down.
I think it's a classification you'd love to find yourself in. It looks like a winnable classification,
Right.
depending on whether you have a very good football team. And St. Paul's looks like the class of that classification.
And meanwhile, name a team, I don't care the classification, that wants to play Leeds. You got Tadero Marshall, the quarterback, who's very, very strong. You've got Trey Nation, who's a running back that everybody probably in the SEC will want. I mean, who wants to play them? They're the only team from classification 4A or below that is in the AL.com power poll of top 20 teams. And I think they were like number 16, and I think they clearly should be in the top 10.
If I name a team that I'm surprised is still sitting as low as they are there in Class 4A that can take out Leeds, it's Aniana. As Aniana is the number 8 team, they're the defending state champion in that classification. They take down Good Hope 53-8. We've seen too much of Aniana over the years and how well coached they are. Coach Jacobs, who was a quarterback there at Alabama in the late 70s, Don Jacobs, I think is his name, and he's an outstanding coach. And they get over the Schneid last year. Look for them. UMS Wright sitting there at number 2. We'll just have to see how that works out. But, Luke, let's move over. Let's talk some college football, start talking about the schedule today. I want to start off with Alabama, though, and Alabama takes on a Southern Miss team, and that's the story. What in the world happened to Southern Miss is the storyline for me today.
An Ellis Johnson bomb got dropped on them.
Golly, but how does it continue? I mean, it's been 2 more years since then, and what are they, 4 years removed from a 12-2 season? Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, they are just atrocious. Let me put it this way. You want to know how bad Southern Miss is? Alabama was a 40-point favorite over Florida Atlantic. They beat them 41-0 with 7.5 minutes to go when the game was called. Southern Miss is a 48-point underdog to Alabama. So what you're saying, essentially, in the same type of conditions, Southern Miss is 7 to 8 points worse than Florida Atlantic, and Florida Atlantic's terrible. This is the first time, too, Alabama and Southern Miss have played since 2005. That kind of shocked me. I mean, even as an Alabama fan, it just seems like we play them more than that. It's been 9 years since we played Southern Miss.
And another big shock I saw last week, though, Mississippi State gives them a chance to play them. And over the years, Mississippi State and Ole Miss have decided not to play Southern Miss for a very good reason. That's because Southern Miss would have won half of them at least.
Easily.
And now to see the difference between those programs sitting there in that state is shocking. But a big storyline for Alabama still is the quarterback situation. And Jake Coker had some terrible throws last week, but shows a glimpse of what could be if he gets whatever's going on in his head out. I think it is a head game for him to me as I watch him play, but a big physical guy with a humongous arm. He was 15-24 for 202 and a touchdown last week. Some of your thoughts on Alabama's thoughts. See, even that touchdown pass that he threw was off, but then some of the passes that he has down the field, Luke, were, I mean, you can see the reason that people point to him and say if this guy can get it straight, he's a pro potential.
I totally agree. And he threw that pass to Jalston Fowler, who I said on the podcast this week is as old as Ashawn Robinson looks. Jalston Fowler, people forget he couldn't play his senior year in high school because he was too old. And so, I mean,
you realize that we were calling him for Viger the very first year we went over and did the state championship.
Was that 08?
I don't know. It's a long time ago. It feels like a long time ago, doesn't it?
I think 1908. I want to talk a lot more about this Jake Coker and Blake Sims thing because I think got some good points to talk about here, and we'd love to get your phone calls in about it.
256-234-6221, 800-782-0108. Get your prediction in also. Big game today in the SEC, Georgia, South Carolina. Todd Gurley rushing yards will be the tiebreaker. Go ahead and call in or find us on social media and get them in. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Just switch. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown, live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill. I'm Randy Lee alongside Luke Robinson this morning. We'll take your phone calls. We talked a lot about high school football from last night and Thursday night, 800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. Moving in to talk about Alabama football, Auburn off this week. Auburn with a huge game next Thursday night at Kansas State. So we'll hit on that a little bit closing out the program today. But also a good tap of football games here in the nation. Let's quickly go back to the phone lines, though. Jerome, you're on Sports Blitz.
Hey, man, how y'all doing tonight?
Good, Jerome.
Today or whatever. But anyway, I want to comment. First of all, I want to say that, we lost one of our guys that called in day before yesterday. You remember Mr. Clyde Yates?
Yes.
He used to call in and give predictions, him and Mr. Billy.
Yes.
But anyway, Mr. Clyde, I don't want to pray for the family because Mr. Clyde passed away.
Oh, no, I didn't hear that.
He was a big Alabama fan, but it was unexpected, but let the prayers go out to him. But anyway, he loved football, and he loved to call in on the Sports Blitz, him and Mr. Billy. So y'all remember him in the prayers. But I want to say that, I'm sorry I haven't made – I know you're probably saying I ain't made it to the ball game yet, but I'm still pulling for them Wildcats. But, I've been time I had to work, and so but I put in for homecoming also. I will hopefully be there to represent the Wildcats and say, Wildcats, come on, let's do it, because we had 5 turnovers last week. I said, man, I couldn't believe that. But, and then this week, I guess, I don't know if we had any turnovers or not, because by the time I got home, I plugged y'all in, and dog, it was over at 9 o'clock. I said, Lord, that must have been quick. Then they said it won 6-5-0. I said, Lord, that's unusual for one. I figured we'll win, but I didn't think we'll win that bad. But hey, I enjoyed it. But now, what is the team for this week?
This week it's Georgia and South Carolina. Give us a prediction on that. And the tiebreaker is Todd Gurley rushing yard. So Georgia, South Carolina, Jerome.
Y'all hear me?
Yeah, we've got you, Jerome. Do you not have us? And hopefully we can get that straightened out. Jerome, if you could, just call us back, 800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. Daniel, let us know if we're good to go with a text, and we'll try to continue to take some phone calls out there. I heard him clearly, and Jerome, I hate to hear that. Clyde Yates was an avid caller to this program since we started 7 or 8 years ago, and so our condolences do go out to his family. He's probably put in as many predictions as anybody out there. So get in your predictions today.
Yes, I have noticed his absence, and so I'm so sorry to hear about that. He was a friend of the program, and prayers go out to the family, and we're thinking of you guys. Let's take a different turn now. Let's go back to talking about Alabama football for a second with Blake Sims and then Jake Coker. And Jimmy Stein and I did the podcast this week talking Tuscaloosa, and Jimmy put it very succinctly, I thought, when he said, Blake Sims probably gives Alabama the least chance to get beat, but Jake Coker gives Alabama the best chance to win. And I think that holds true. Jake Coker can do more things than Blake can. It's just keeping him focused and getting him to do those things. He's got a slower delivery, does Coker. He doesn't see the field all as well as you would want him to see it. But maybe some of that comes with experience. I'm not trying to sugarcoat Alabama's quarterback situation at all. But it hadn't really needed sugarcoating yet. The two guys combined for over 400 yards passing last week in a game that was shortened by 7.5 minutes. So Alabama could have easily scored 55 points last week, and if they'd wanted to, they could have scored 90. But I still want to see this team cut loose a little bit more. I would love to see the ball given to either one of the quarterbacks. I don't care who it is. And just say, you know what, you go have fun. Tell your linemen to block for you. Tell your running backs to run for you. And your receivers to go catch it. I am a little mildly concerned, even though I love the fact that Amari Cooper's getting so much attention. I'm mildly concerned that some of the other receivers may feel a little shut out. I think it's great that Amari Cooper is setting records. He's leading the country in receiving. That's fantastic, and he is awesome. And if I was a coach, I'd get the ball in his hands. There's no doubt about it. But you have other weapons too, and maybe they're setting up something for later. I don't know, but I would like to see somebody else used, specifically for me, O.J. Howard.
Defensive side of the ball was outstanding last week. It's kind of hard to tell exactly how you're playing, but are there any players that are stepping up and standing out to you as you move into Game 3?
It was very evident to me very quickly how important a good cornerback is in this system. When Eddie Jackson comes back out there and he makes some big plays, fun plays, he looks more like a cornerback than Bradley Silva. Bradley Silva looks like a return guy. Eddie Jackson looks like a Nick Saban cornerback, and he came out and made some fantastic plays. It was nice to have Trey DePriest back. Along the defensive line, guys, I mean, nobody really stood out, but I would say a guy that jumped off the page at me when he got his chance. Close your ears, Auburn fans, and that's Rashaan Evans.
Yeah.
My goodness gracious, when he comes around that corner, I mean, you've got to be prepared, and he's so quick. He's just unbelievably fast. He probably needs a little bit more size on him eventually, but right now, for what Alabama's going to ask him to do, he's perfect.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Tommy on 280, you're on Sports Blitz.
Hey, guys, how's it going today?
Good, Tommy. How are you?
Good. The whole question about Alabama's quarterback is sort of moot until they finally play somebody. You can't put a gauge on either one of those guys until you put a decent defense in front of them. Alabama really hasn't played a decent defense. You know, and when you do play an SEC school, they're going to pack the box and make people that play man-to-man on the island out there, and then we'll see what they've got. But for the time being, I think it's hard to put a gauge on anything Alabama's done. You know, West Virginia played them pretty good, but they had to hurry up offense, and I think that's Nick Saban's kryptonite, so to speak. So, but anyways, I think it's just hard to put a gauge on any quarterback Alabama has until they actually play somebody. And I'll take your comments off the air. Thanks, guys.
Great call, Tommy. We appreciate it. Luke, your thoughts?
I'll say this. I don't know that that's actually right. Sometimes you can play nobody, and you can see what you got. Last night, I saw Gunnar Kiel, the former Alabama. Well, Alabama was chasing him. He was a big target. Alabama decided to target him in lieu of Jameis Winston. And Gunnar Kiel, the journeyman, ends up at Cincinnati. He throws 6 touchdowns. First person in BCS history to throw 6 touchdowns on his debut. He looked fantastic. And I know Toledo's not a game breaker, but I can tell you right now, I would rather have Gunnar Kiel probably than Blake Sims or Jake Coker right now. He looked fabulous. But I'll say this. I think he's absolutely right that Florida's going to stack the box. Florida's probably going to put Vernon Hargreaves III on Amari Cooper and say, let's see what you can do. Vernon Hargreaves is probably the best cornerback in this conference, if not the country, and they'll say, make somebody else beat us.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Jerome, you got a prediction for us?
Oh, yeah, man. I didn't mean to y'all cut me off, but anyway, is Georgia going to win, I'll say 38 to about 22. And now what's the tiebreaker?
Todd Gurley rushing yards.
Well, Gurley rushing yard, he'll probably get about 165.
165. Great prediction there, Jerome. Good luck to you. We appreciate the phone call, buddy.
All right, man. Hey, but I am going to come to the homecoming for Mineral Russell now. So let's go Wildcat.
All right, buddy. You come
Jerome.
see us. 800, yeah, 800-782-0108.
How about this tweet that just went out from Chris Lowe? That smell that you smell isn't necessarily Childersburg today. Sometimes people say, but it is. It's coming from Nashville, where Vandy will go with Wade Freeback at quarterback. It's their 4th quarterback to play already. He's a true freshman. His first start. They're playing, I think, Massachusetts today.
Oh.
It is complete and utter disarray and desperation in Nashville. I hate to see it.
It's sad. It's sad that any team in the SEC could be in the cellar where they are, because they're as low as I've ever – and that's saying something. To say this is as low as I've ever seen Vandy's program is saying a whole lot. 800-782-0108. Love to hear from you. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
You're clear.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. We're live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill. $6.99 snack wing basket with tea is the lunch special, and bring your kids out in uniform all season long. They'll eat off the kids' menu for $1.99. Quickly, I want to point out that we're up here at JR's almost every day of the week. Monday is the long day that we're not, Monday and Sunday, because JR is closed on Sunday, but 4 days throughout the week, unless we're on the road with Sports Call on Friday. We do the program right here on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill. We've got a nice setup here. We've got the shows that are live streamed, and you can listen in to us as we do the program. So we'd love for you to come out. We've got a happy hour special between 4 and 6, a lot of great appetizer specials, a lot of great beer selection specials out there as well. So love for you to come out to JR's, be a part of our programs. Luke, we've talked a little bit about Alabama. Let's close out with Alabama and then move on. Anything you're looking for today? Is there something that you point to with this team? One thing that I guess I would point to is back there at the running back position for Alabama. Do they make a decision? And when I'm watching right now, I would. You've said this, and the more I watch, the more I agree with you. TJ Yeldon needs the ball. He's your guy until he's gone. Let him, and he may end up being the leading rusher in Alabama history, and he's very deserving. Yeah,
I would like to see him have more of a shot to open things up and maybe give Florida a little bit something else to look at. I mean, I know they know TJ Yeldon's good, but I would love to see a throw at O.J. Howard. I would love to see Jake Coker go down the field a little bit more, or maybe Jake Coker throw more screen passes and Blake Sims go down the field more, something to mix something up. I just want to re-energize this fan base. I mean, there is a victory malaise over the whole program right now. Like it's you're bored of winning. And the thing is, once you get to the top, Saban's always said that, once you get to the top, it's very hard to stay there because people do, instead of, it's not enough. I mean, you heard it from Andy Graham talking about Auburn the other day. They beat San Jose State by 40-something points, and everybody looked at it and said, well, we didn't look that good. I mean, 2 years ago, Auburn fans would just be, there'd be flags everywhere, people going nuts, and as it is, people are concerned about a few things, and rightfully so, but at the same time, you take winning for granted once you start doing it a lot.
Very good points. We'd love to hear from you, 256-234-6221, and let's move over. Biggest game today, Georgia, South Carolina. I'll start off with you. Where do you see this game moving? First off, have you drank from the cup of Georgia after that one football game? Do you really feel like they're in contention for a national title this year?
Well, I think they could be. I think if you were making a Final Four right now and said, okay, nobody's playing any more games, I'm stopping right now and I'm going to pick the 4 best teams I've seen, Georgia would be on that list. I think Texas A&M would be on that list. I think Oregon would be on that list. And the other team I had on there is escaping me right now, Oklahoma. Those would be my 4 teams for the playoff right now. And then the next 4 would be Baylor, Alabama, Auburn, and who would be the other one? Maybe USC? I can't remember. Florida State. So I think that that first 4, though, they're going to run into some problems. I mean, obviously, Texas A&M is not going to be able to keep this up. I don't believe that. Georgia may have a problem today. This game today is going to be trickier than people think. Look, before Texas A&M ran roughshod over South Carolina, this probably was a 4 or 5 point game in favor of South Carolina. And the lines moved 12 points in just a few weeks. And this South Carolina team, they were shell-shocked by A&M. But those kind of things happen on the first game sometimes. And it was a weird situation. This South Carolina team isn't that bad, and this Georgia team isn't that good. So I think this is more of a pick-em game, quite frankly. I'm not going to be shocked at all if South Carolina wins.
I totally agree with you. I'm not totally bought into this Georgia team. I may be a little more after today, but I do think that quarterback play, look, they're not going to be able to just sit back there in the type of offense that they run. If the quarterback does not scare you enough to run the ball himself. That's the thing that makes Auburn dynamic this year or last year. Is Nick Marshall, when he's in the ball game, he's another running back there. Hudson Mason throwing for 6 yards per completion average there in the first week just really doesn't impress me that much. And, Luke, I was telling you this as we move forward. When I watch Auburn and Alabama play, yes, both of them have as good a running attacks as anyone in the country, including Georgia. Todd Gurley may be the best player in the country, but that's up for grabs as well. But when I look at our receiving core in comparison to Georgia, it's night and day. Who on Georgia's team scares you at all at receiver?
Not a one. I haven't seen anybody that just blows me away at receiver. And, that granted, they hadn't needed one yet, but they've only played one game. This game is going to be a lot closer today because it's desperation. You want to talk about Vandy being desperate. Well, South Carolina's desperate. They lose this, they can kiss any chance of an SEC title goodbye. I mean, it's all the way over. I mean, they're probably out of it as it is. But, I mean, because, they got to go to Auburn later. It doesn't look like they're going to win that game. They've got to play Florida later on. Florida's much improved. But if South Carolina loses today, I mean, you can just mail it in.
256-234-6221. That's our prediction today. Georgia, South Carolina, Todd Gurley rushing yards will be the tiebreaker. You can find us on social media. Push it out there as well. We've got a ton that we give away throughout the week, whether it be trivia questions or other type of games that we're playing on social media. So go and find us there. We had a lot of fun on Sports Call this week with some comments from Gene Chizik on the SEC Network. Probably the most calls that we had throughout the week was Brett pulling his Brett imitation of Gene Chizik. And we all know that Brett's never been much of a fan of old Gene. Even after, I guess, the national championship year, he may have quieted down a little bit, but Brett and Terry never really embraced Gene Chizik.
Terry definitely did. Look, you see that picture of Brett, and he's wearing the eye black and the jersey, and he's headed out to Arizona. He looked like a Gene Chizik guy to me right then.
But Gene Chizik was asked 3 keys to stopping Auburn's offense. And, of course, Brett's comment was, have Gene Chizik be the head coach, and that'll stop it just as quick as anybody. But your thoughts so far on the SEC Network and the host, though. I want to start with that. I know Gene Chizik has been added in. Tim Tebow is going to be on Good Morning America. Did you see that this week?
I did. I mean, he's perfect for Good Morning America because he's a feel-goody type guy that, you get up in the morning and, I'm just having my coffee. I want to feel good about it. There's old Tim Tebow. It's just bringing a ray of sunshine. But for me, for SEC Network guys, I want some guys that are going to diss a team when they need to. I mean, we talked about it. We're going to go into the Big Ten a little bit early, in a minute. But Kirk Herbstreit was just killing the Big Ten a second ago. And I want somebody who's not scared to say, you know what, Vandy's situation is terrible. They look awful. Overall, this has been a bad job by Derek Mason so far. Paul Feinbaum will do that. I think Greg McElroy will step up and do some things like that. I think Booger McFarland has shown that he's not afraid to take a swipe or two at some folks. But Tim Tebow, everything is beautiful. I don't know that we want to see that all the time. It's Good Morning America. It's not SEC Network.
As we go to break, here were Gene Chizik's 3 keys to stopping Auburn's offense. Number 1, focus on the tailbacks. Number 2, defending the quarterback with just one man does not work. And number 3, avoid eye discipline problems.
And number 4, have Nick Fairley.
256
Fire Ted Roof, number 5.
256-234-6221. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Take your phone calls on the other side. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Couldn't get it to start there. All right, we're good now. Coming to you in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Got about 55 minutes left here on the program. Love for you to come out, be a part of the program today as we're at JR Sports Bar and Grill in beautiful downtown Alexander City. Not the prettiest of days outside, but, Luke, it was smoldering hot last night to play a football game. Week 4 of the season. It was 80-plus degrees on our ride home at midnight last night, so the humidity was extremely hot and a ton of cramps that were happening out there. But it's football weather, and this is a beautiful time of year. Is this your favorite time of year, Luke?
I like it to be 10 degrees cooler than it is. I mean, I'm like
well,
you.
You're about to get it, though.
I know. We're going to get a drop-off today, supposedly. But, of course, as Krista tells me all the time, I keep looking at my phone, and I say, today it's going to rain this afternoon. And she's like, you just saying that so we don't have to go outside and do anything. And so you can sit inside and watch football. And I'm like, phone don't lie.
You got me. 800-782-0108. Our prediction for the day is Georgia, South Carolina. Call in with a prediction there. Todd Gurley, rushing yards, will be the tiebreaker. And, Luke, as we're going to break, had a lot of phone calls on old Gene Chiswick's comments on how to stop Auburn's offense. Number one, focus on the tailbacks. His reason there were he doesn't think any question they're going to have a 1,000-yard rusher in this offense every single year as long as they have a quarterback runner as a threat. Mentioned that about Georgia. Georgia's got the two-headed monster or three-headed monster back there in the backfield, but the quarterback doesn't have any threat of running the football. Do you agree with that, Luke? That's part of the dynamic that's hard to stop in this type of offense now.
I mean, I think they should have a 1,000-yard rusher about every year, but you know what? In this day and time, I think about everybody should have a 1,000-yard rusher. You don't even have to average 100 yards anymore. I mean,
many games, yeah.
I mean, if you've got so many games, you play, 12, 13 games. I mean, I think you should have a guy close to 1,000 yards just about every single season. But, yes, I think Auburn's probably more of a threat to have two guys do it.
Number two, defending the quarterback with just one man doesn't work, particularly a defensive lineman on the zone read. He's got no chance. Gene Chiswick said you always have to have what we call 1.5 players. There's a half of a defensive lineman and a second-level defender that's always got to be there. And the last one's the funny one, though. It's avoid eye discipline problems. That's the problem with this type of offense. When there's so many different variables out there, as a linebacker, you're taught to look for a couple of different things, to take on the fullback. If you see a guard pull, if you see a trap block, you do certain things with what you're seeing in front of you. But the eye discipline problems, when people are moving back and forth and you've got a speed sweep with a Corey Grant and he's coming across and who's got the football and they may throw the football behind me right there in the middle of that zone with Duke Williams that's causing a ton of problems right now with his size and matchup problems there. So it's a fun time. I would think that it would be a fun time to be a defensive coordinator because so far no one's really found a way to slow down these up-tempo offenses, but it'll happen at some point in time. So I just think it's a fun time. Yeah,
they always catch up, and I mean it's just who's going to be the one to do it because then that guy will be the new prodigy.
That's right.
I mean they always come around, and then this guy's a genius, and then you have his coaching tree, and so I mean Rhett Lashley's probably the next guy on that Auburn staff to get a job. Wouldn't you think? I mean, he's been with Gus Malzahn since his playing days in high school. So I think that he will be the next guy. He'll be somebody will take a chance on him getting a job.
Kansas State next Thursday night. We'll close out talking about Auburn here on the road in Manhattan, Kansas. Bill Snyder has proven that it's tough to go on the road and beat him there. Your thoughts on the game, Luke?
That's going to be a sneaky game. I do believe Auburn will win. I didn't see anything out of Kansas State that made me think that Auburn should be too threatened. However, it is going to be sneaky because Bill Snyder is 70-something years old. Kansas State's a nothing program without him. They've already proven that. They're nothing without him. But with him, for whatever reason, he is the heartbeat of that entire university, and I feel like Kansas State's going to have a shot, but Auburn pulls away late.
Big Ten, a nightmare last weekend as the top 5 teams go down against some big opponents. And on the national scene and on national television, I guess the biggest one is Michigan State losing to Oregon and the way that they lost it in the second half of the game. But I think the bigger storyline nationally is what's happened to Ohio State with just the loss of one quarterback. Let me tell you, I was in Dayton, Ohio this week for 3 days. I was actually in the hometown, a little outside of Dayton, Ohio, of Braxton Miller. And so many of the people I was around, of course, were Ohio State fans. And, Luke, there is almost an air about them that we know we're not very good. We almost we expect this. This is that's the talk that I got, and I kind of was taken back because Ohio State and Michigan, no matter what, when you and I grew up, yeah, the Southeastern Conference, we thought we were the best, but we knew that there was a chance when we took those teams on, it was going to be tough, and they could beat us. But now it's almost becoming, yeah, we got it. We understand. We like playing each other up here, and we hope that we're better than them. We're just not as good as y'all. You get that sense a little bit?
Oh, yeah. You would almost feel sorry for Ohio State fans if they weren't so pompous. And having been around a lot of them for a lot of years, I can tell you I'm not going to be an Ohio State fan, period. But I think here's part of your problem. I go back to last year's signing classes. I mean, and I think this would work for just about any of the years. I know it would work for this upcoming year. Last year in the signing classes, you had Alabama 1, LSU 2, Tennessee 5, A&M 6, Georgia 7, Florida 8, and Auburn 9. That's a lot of SEC teams. Guess what? You had Ohio State number 3. Then you go all the way to number 22, Michigan State. Number 24 is Penn State, and then number 31 is Michigan. When you've got 7, 8 SEC teams in the top 10, and you've got 4 Big Ten teams in the top 31, there's no contest. I mean, you're going to get waxed every time you start playing somebody, and you're going to be a threat to lose to some of these other smaller schools too.
Kirk Herbstreit had some very good points this morning, and one of them that I took was since 2006, or at least in the last 5 years, I think was his points. First, he said since 2006, the Big Ten has really been out of the story. You can throw a couple of teams here and there, but since 2006, when it gets to bowl games, a Big Ten team like a Michigan may take on a Mississippi State. Mississippi State rolls up 52 points on them. How in the world does that happen? When did that ever happen back in the day? But his point was skill position and talent in skill positions is a major issue, and he pointed that in the last 5 years, the Big Ten's only produced one decent NFL prospect. Did you realize that? I was trying to think as I was writing in. I said, which one was that?
Yeah, I can't even remember who it was.
But I'm sure it was a running back, maybe for Ohio State that's still in the league. I know Wells. I don't know.
Carlos Hyde is playing for San Francisco right now as a backup, but he's only a rookie. I mean, they don't have a lot of weapons. They don't have a lot of skill position guys. And here's the thing: if you're a skill position guy, where do you want to go? Do you want to go to play in Michigan, where it's freezing cold, starting about 2 weeks from now? And you're not going to get the ball that much. They still play a relatively old school type of offense. They play at 11 o'clock in the deadgum morning, so all your family's got to wake up early just about every week, it seems. Or you can go to Auburn, or you can go to Alabama, or you can go to LSU, and they have fun night games. And they play huge contests every week. Game day seems to be there all the time. Most of the offenses are fun, or the team's winning a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
they're sending players to the NFL.
And, I mean, nobody has sent more players. You look at who's got the most players in the NFL. I think LSU's number 1 with 39, Alabama's second with 36. I mean, the SEC just cranks them out. They develop them. They have more fun. It's more passionate here. Or you could go out west even. And go out west and things are a little bit more laid back and fun. The Big Ten has all the arrogance of the SEC without the actual results.
256-234-6221. Love to hear from you. Prediction, Georgia, South Carolina. Call in with that. Todd Gurley rushing yards will be the tiebreaker. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Clear. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. 256-234-6221 is our phone number here locally. Our prediction, Georgia, South Carolina. Tiebreaker will be rushing yards for Todd Gurley. Go ahead and call in, get that prediction in. Luke, some of the other games on tap today. Your thoughts on some of those? Missouri up early over Central Florida, 7-0. Ohio State up 7-0 over Kent. Virginia Tech currently losing or trailing Eastern Carolina or East Carolina 7-0. But moving through the rest of the schedule, Louisville takes on Virginia. Louisville, could they scare there in the ACC this year? Could they be somebody, especially once you get to the ACC championship game, that could move forward? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Louisville could be a moderate threat. I mean, of course, they're going to host Florida State on a Thursday night, if memory serves. So, I mean, that's going to be a difficult game. But they could be a legit threat. Now, Virginia Tech, we lauded them with praise last week for beating Ohio State on the road. Right now, they look pretty terrible going up against East Carolina. An East Carolina team that gave South Carolina all they wanted last week. East Carolina's up early, 7-0, and they're driving. They're already back in the red zone. So Virginia Tech could have a bit of a hangover right now. And, the ACC, I believe, was the only conference last week to win every game they played. And so the ACC, we may not give them enough credit. I hear all this talk about the Pac-12. Pac-12 isn't really all that impressive. I mean, come on. I mean, USC, they beat a Stanford team in a snooze fest. And really the bigger story about that game was Pat Hayden coming down from the sidelines, and which I don't know if we've talked about enough. That was so disgusting to me.
Talk about it a little bit.
It makes me so mad that he gets to be a part of this committee still, and everybody talks about, he's a Rhodes Scholar, and he's a man of integrity, and all that's fine. I mean, I don't deny any of that. I'm sure he is. But once you pull a stunt like that, I don't know that you should have the opportunity to be able to judge other teams, and I know he has to recuse himself for anything involving USC. I don't think that's enough, because it's like somebody else said on sports radio this week, that what do you think? I mean, they don't ever talk about USC. I mean, somehow, some way, by 6 degrees of separation, USC is going to be involved. If soon as somebody starts saying Southern Cat, he's got to walk out of the room. I mean, he's going to be there a little bit, or he's going to wink at somebody and say, we're a pretty good team, and on his way out the door or something. Just, it all seems a little too backroomsy for me, and it really bothers me that he gets to be involved with this, especially if he blows his cool at the first sign of a problem in the second game of the season. How am I supposed to trust him when things get heated in the boardroom and he's got to decide a Pac-10 versus an SEC team?
Impressed with Oregon last weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Oregon looked okay. I would probably have them number one team in the country right now, and I'm okay saying that, because I would move these teams around a lot more. I mean, I don't think just because you were number one last week that you get to still be number one.
Adds good talk to talk radios. I mean, that's the only thing it's worth right now anyway.
Agreed. And I think that, everybody was all aghast that Alabama moved back a spot. I was like, they should move back a spot. They don't look like the number 2 team in the country right now. And if Alabama wins out, it's not going to matter. They will be in. So quit worrying about wherever Alabama is.
LSU, they more impressive than you thought to start the season? Or are they about exactly what you think? I mean, is LSU a contender or not?
I think they can be a contender. They're too young probably this season. I mean, they've got a big game in a few weeks against Auburn, and that's going to be a tough one. I think they play October 4th. In fact, game day is deciding, do they want to go to Auburn for Auburn LSU, or do they want to go to the Grove for Alabama Ole Miss? Talk about 2 huge games. I think they're going to end up going to the Grove because they've never been there, assuming that Alabama and Ole Miss are undefeated until that point.
800-782-0108. The elephant in the room in the NFL, and you're a huge NFL fan. You got snookered in with the fantasy football along with many others, but now you are hook, line, and sinkered in the NFL. So you've got, I'm sure, a good opinion on this Roger Goodell situation, and just your thoughts overall. As Roger Goodell tells CBS News this past Tuesday that he didn't see anything. He didn't see the surveillance tape on Ray Rice. It seems like everybody else did, but he didn't. So is he pleading ignorance there, and what's the NFL going to do with him, Luke?
He looks like a buffoon. I mean, I don't know any other way to put that. I mean, he looks bad right now. He's making $40 million a year. And granted, I mean, compared to the money the NFL as a league has rolling in, it's probably a drop in the bucket, but $40 million a year to look this bad, and that goes back to me, gosh, it defies all logic. If Goodell saw this to only give Ray Rice 2 games and put the sanctity of the league on the line. I don't know. I can't
The
believe
shield is what they say.
the shield to say, okay, this only deserves 2 games. So that's why, in a sense, common sense tells me he did not see this tape. But he sounded so dumb in so many other moments that you wonder, maybe he did see it and he just didn't think it'd be that big of a deal. I mean, there's some things out there, and I know it may not seem fair, but there's some things out there you can do and can't do. I mean, the whole thing with Ray Lewis, for instance, it's pretty sickening that he ever played again. But really, after a few years, everybody had kind of forgotten it, right? I mean, everybody kind of put it out of their mind. You forget that these things happen.
Much worse situation than this, to be honest.
I think, I mean, he was either involved with or directly or indirectly with a murder.
If you read anything or if you look into this at all, you leave saying there is no question Ray Lewis. Now, whether he did it or not, no, but he was involved.
He
was
knew more than
involved.
He was letting everybody know. I tell you that. So he, for him to open his big mouth, I thought was kind of dumb too. And it went at a time when if I was Ray Lewis, I'd just play quiet mouse, and I would hope nobody brings up the parallels. Just ironic, both these two players having to play for Baltimore. But why are you saving a guy like Ray Rice, who is not even a premier running back in this league anymore? Not that would be a defense. I mean, you can't hit a woman. I don't know that you can hit a person like that. I don't forget domestic violence. He shouldn't hit anybody like that. I mean, you should almost be considered carrying a lethal weapon with your fist when you're that in shape. I mean, it'd be like an MMA fighter going to a bar and just punching somebody. I mean, they ought to get more punished than a regular person doing that because they train for it all day long. And so to hit a woman like that is so, wow, if you hadn't seen the videotape, it takes you back because it's almost like she teleports. He hits her so fast, her head's right here, and then it's on the floor. It hits the railing of the elevator, and then it's on the floor. You can't believe that somebody can strike somebody that quickly. But I don't know that he'll ever play again. And let me say this. I'm not defending Ray Rice in the least. I don't want anybody to get it twisted. But you almost feel sorry for him in a sense, in that he already went through everything. Okay? He gets his punishment. His punishment was light. Nobody denies that. But he got his punishment. And Ray Rice didn't. I mean, he just said, all right, I'm going to sit my 2 games. I mean, y'all said it. I will do it. He sits his 2 games. And then when the video comes out, it's almost double jeopardy. He has to go through it all over again. And I don't necessarily know that that's fair.
The oddest part of this story to me comes in with Ozzie Newsome and the rest of the Ravens story. And Ozzie Newsome comes out this week and says, look, that's exactly what we heard. Yeah. I'm not hearing anything new. I was told that. Sounds like Ray Rice had let them know, yes, I punched her in the elevator. That's what happened. So the NFL, it's almost humorous to me, and it goes back to Roger Goodell and his handling of the situation in New Orleans where players lost seasons, Jonathan Vilma lost seasons, Sean Payton pled ignorance in that case as well, said that he didn't have any knowing, and Roger Goodell comes up and he didn't not only slap his wrist, he took him out of the league.
Said ignorance is no excuse.
Yeah, cost him $6 million, said ignorance is no excuse. So when you hear what Ozzie Newsome comes out and says, yes, I knew about this, how can he plead ignorance if it's just hypocritical to me?
I totally believe it. I believe what you're saying. I think that's exactly right. And now Ray Rice is done for a year. It took a long time to get where he should have been out for a year to begin with. But he did have to go through double jeopardy, and I think that's a problem. I don't think you can change your ruling based on public outcry. I mean, I go back to the NCAA with Penn State. I mean, I thought they did the wrong thing. Now, here's the other problem. I mean, Ray Rice probably isn't going to get a job again. I mean, every time somebody even looks at him, somebody's going to put that YouTube video of that elevator scene up, and he's not getting another job. So he's going to have really more of a lifetime ban from working, period.
256-234-6221. Call in predictions, Georgia, South Carolina. Tiebreaker rushing yards for Todd Gurley. When we come back, Luke, I want to run down the lines for the games today and a few lines for the games tomorrow in a segment that we'll continue to run on Saturday, and pick the games that you like, some of the lines that you like as we move into the season. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Three, two, one.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. I'm Randy Lee alongside Luke Robinson this morning. 800-782-0108. Call in, get your prediction in for Georgia, South Carolina. Tiebreaker, Todd Gurley.
Let's go back to the NFL for just 1 second. I think that all the other leagues have to be enjoying this right now because the NFL has been on top of the mountain for so long, and they're still on top of the mountain. The gap is so huge between the NFL and NBA, and then Major League Baseball is at third at best. Nobody's talking
College football's right there with Major League Baseball.
I'm just talking about the major leagues, the professional leagues, although college football is quickly moving in that direction.
True.
But nobody is talking about Major League Baseball right now. Nobody. I mean, you can't find a station, ESPN, anybody, to tell you what is going on with Major League Baseball. And so they've got to be kind of enjoying this. This and the Adrian Peterson thing. He turns himself into police for switching his child. And look,
what happened now?
Adrian Peterson apparently was using a switch to discipline his child, who I believe is 4 years old. And I saw the pictures of the child's leg. I certainly haven't confirmed they're his leg, whatever. And it looked excessive, okay? But at first glance or at first listen, my first inclination was to say, if parents went to jail for switching their children, then I can tell you right now, I know two parents that probably be, and I'm pretty sure you know a couple of parents that would be in some trouble. And shoot, it's a different time though. You can't do things the way that used to be done. You can't discipline children the way they used to be disciplined. And you can make the argument, well, that's terrible. Oh, okay, but I saw this child's leg. It looked like he was a little bit excessive. If you're Adrian Peterson, you should be able to just look at your child and say, don't do that. I mean, you would hope, but it's a sticky wicket because as long as you're not really abusing the child, it's tough to get in the way of a parent being a parent.
Your thoughts on the NFL as a whole, though? What do they do to get a grip here, and do they have to make do the owners? The owners are just as much at fault here as anyone. Jerry Jones he's in a mess. I mean,
he really looks terrible, and there's already rumors out there that they're targeting Kevin Sumlin of Texas A&M. Would that work out? I don't know. I mean, and what has Kevin Sumlin done really? I mean, he went to South Carolina and won big. I mean, kudos. But he hadn't won the league yet. I mean, Missouri's been to a championship game. Kevin Sumlin hadn't been. So I don't know. He looks bad. Then the other day, I don't know if you saw the press conference Cam Newton had. That was pretty weird. I mean, and it's like just things like that out there for the NFL. They need better ambassadors.
Definitely do. And quickly, before we move on to our next topic, I got 2 Alabama tickets up here for the game against Southern Miss tonight. Kicks at 5 o'clock, I believe. If you want the tickets, call in. We'll put all the names in the hat, or you can send it out on social media as well. You can come up to JR's, pick up these 2 tickets. If you're wanting to go to the football game, got 2 extra tickets to the Alabama and Southern Miss game today. So just call in and say, I'd love to stop by and pick those up and head over to the football game, or you can send it through us on social media, and Justin will let us know out there as well. We've talked a lot about college football, going to move into some lines. I wanted to throw 4 games out there and get quickly your thoughts on these 4 lines. Let's start Georgia, South Carolina. Where have you seen the line? I see it -2.5 for Georgia. Is that where you're seeing it?
I've seen it at 7. Wow. Now, it may have dropped significantly, but
yeah, it's different. It's different up and down. I see it as low as 2.5 and as high as 7. So let's give it at 6.5. Who would you take here?
South Carolina.
Take South Carolina here.
That's too many points on the road in the SEC against what should be a good team.
Arkansas is the next one. Arkansas taking on Texas Tech, and somewhere between -2.5 for Texas Tech to -1 for where did this one end up? I'm not sure exactly where this one ended up. Looks like a pick 'em almost.
Arkansas was a 1-point favorite last I saw, and that game has moved from Texas Tech a 3-point favorite all the way to Arkansas a 1-point favorite. The key to that game to me is to watch the over/under at 67 is what it may be right now. I think I don't know who can stop the other one. I mean, Arkansas's already proven they can't stop the passing game. Auburn passed all over them, and Arkansas did a pretty good job of running on Alabama. I mean, on Auburn at least in the first half, and then they ran all over whoever they played last week, scored 70-something points. I think Arkansas is going to have a big day running. I think Texas Tech is going to have a good day passing. That's what both those teams do. I see something like a 45-40 game.
Going to know a lot more about Florida after today. They take on Kentucky. Kentucky not outstanding, but an SEC opponent nonetheless. So what do you like here? I see it at 19.5, Florida. Do you like Kentucky here, or do you like Florida?
I like Florida, but I mean, I know Kentucky's talked a big game, saying that they're going to win this game and yada, yada, yada. But, I mean, until you beat somebody, it's hard for me to pick you.
What in the world has happened to Texas?
They look awful.
They do.
They got to play UCLA and Arlington tonight, and I think that's going to be embarrassing. Why the line is only 7 for that game, I mean, I guess because UCLA doesn't look fantastic. But I think Memphis and Virginia are both better than Texas.
You like UCLA tonight?
Yeah, I like UCLA big.
That's 4 games there, 4 pick'ems from Luke Robinson as he will take South Carolina. Looks like you'll take, did you say Arkansas?
I'm going to take the over.
You'll take the over.
I would prefer to take Texas Tech over Arkansas. I just don't trust Brett Bielema yet.
And you like Florida and UCLA to close out those 4 pick'ems here on college football. Move over to the NFL. Which games you like here? What's some big games in the NFL that you're looking forward to? I guess we can throw this out there. Most of your games, do you watch based around your players that you have on your fantasy football teams?
Yeah,
first?
but I watch anyway. I mean, the NFL's gotten more intriguing to me because there are a lot of Alabama players that are in the league now. For instance, I watched that Baltimore-Pittsburgh game the other day, and I don't know if you saw any of it, but Courtney Upshaw laid a lick on Ben Roethlisberger very early in the game. First drive, maybe third play. Looked fabulous. It was unbelievable. Draws a flag because the quarterbacks are so protected in that league. And the announcers were trying to say, well, led with the crown of his helmet. 10 years ago, that's a form tackle. That's beautiful. That's exactly what you want. 20 years ago, he's on every All-American list because of that. I mean, it's unbelievable. But now, I get to a point if I'm a defensive player like, okay, what exactly do you want me to do here? Because he didn't really lead with the crown of his helmet. I mean, it was just a beautiful tackle that as I define a tackle. And Ben Roethlisberger's 6'5", 250. I mean, how are you supposed to get him down? When you get a chance to get a lick on him, you better do it.
Julio Jones looks like he's all the way back, Luke.
I think Julio Jones looks fantastic. The Falcons wide receiver core, you've got Roddy White, you got Julio Jones, and Devin Hester's your third option, maybe with Harry Douglas as your third, fourth option. Matt Ryan's got to be licking his chops. And so that's the thing. The key to the NFL right now, I heard one of the announcers say, is your third option. I mean, everybody's got a good first option. Everybody's got a decent second option. If you've got a good third option, you can really do some damage.
Can I swing over the topic by throwing a couple of scores out there? I'll start with one. East Carolina leads Virginia Tech 14-0. May tell us a little bit more about where Ohio State is as a football team than anything else here. You ready for this one? UMass leads Vandy 14-0 in the early going of that football game. How in the world has Vandy dropped? Was Franklin that good of a coach to win 9 football games, or did they play that poor of a schedule, everything working? It couldn't have worked out any better because Vandy looks like if they can't pick up a victory here, they may not win one.
James Franklin sucked the entire soul out of that program when he left. I mean, a lot of the guys that were committed there quit, or not quit, they decommitted and either followed into Penn State or went somewhere else. I'm just telling you, that whole place is so demoralized. To not beat a bad Massachusetts team. Derek Mason may be the quickest coach fired in the history of college football.
800-782-0108. Love to hear from you out there up against another break here on the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown, live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill, as we are each and every Saturday from 10 to 12. Bring your kids out in uniform. They'll lead off the kids' menu for $1.99, and $6.99 snack wing basket with a T is the special each and every time you hear us on the air. It's a great area to come out. 4 to 6, we have a happy hour special Monday through Friday at JR's. Tuesday through Friday, we're up here doing a sports call from JR Sports Bar and Grill, and on Saturday. So a majority of the week you can find one of our programs up here, and you're able to listen in and tune in. Love for you to interact if you're in here with us on the show. Let's go back to the phone lines quickly. Cole, you're on Sports Blitz.
Yes, sir. I want to make a prediction on the Georgia-South Carolina game.
All right, what you think, Cole?
24-17 Georgia, and Todd Gurley's going to have 120 yards.
120 yards. Good prediction there, buddy, and good luck to you. We appreciate the phone call.
Thank you.
And that's all it takes. Call in, get us your prediction in for Georgia, South Carolina. Todd Gurley rushing yards will be the tiebreaker. And, Luke, quickly, let's go back through some scores from last night. We know a lot of you tune in the second hour of the program on Saturdays, and we talk a lot about high school sports in the first hour of the program. So we'll quickly run down scores if you haven't heard last night. Starting over in the Lee County area, and thanks for tuning in to us on 95.9 Talk Radio over there. Opelika High School continues their strong play as they move to 4-0 on the season. They take down Pell City 53-0 last night. 2 consecutive shutouts for the Opelika Bulldogs. Matthew Christian was 13 of 14 for 196 yards and 3 touchdowns. Overall, Opelika only allowing 17 total yards of offense last night. Auburn High School gets off the schneid. They defeat Jeff Davis 51-14. Tyus Flakes, the running back, was the story. 192 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. Beauregard, strong play again from them as they take down number 8 Sylacauga 30-17. Quay Wright, their quarterback, who is filling in for an injured quarterback early in the season, he had 129 yards rushing on 19 carries. Valley High School, who Benjamin Russell will play later in the season in region, they lost to Chelsea in a region game last night, 43-20. And probably the biggest matchup set in the state next week will be Central Phoenix City, who sits at number 5. They'll take on a top 10 ranked Prattville team that looks like they've turned the corner and playing much better football. Prattville takes down Smith Station 48-0 last night. Central Phoenix City on Thursday night takes down Lee 43-14. Sets up a great matchup next Friday night between those two teams, Luke.
Oh, man, I really hope – I would love to be able to get over there and just see the first half. I know I have to be back for the scoreboard show, but I just want to see what the environment's like just before kickoff. I mean, the Prattville folks are there, and you can't really be mad at Coach Jamie DuBose because of the way things went down and the fact that he's not coaching there anymore. At the same time, you're so fired up about the new things going on. I mean, the sleeping giant that was Prattville has been reawakened, and they have a great shot to make a statement here. I mean, if Prattville wins this game, they've got to be moving up and be considered for top 2, top 3 in the state of Alabama in 7A.
Yeah, big storyline here in the Prattville Central Phoenix City game. The 1984 state championship team from Prattville will be recognized before the football game. 2 players will have their numbers retired. First 2 players in Prattville's history to have that happen, Kevin Turner and Coach Lowe Pickett, will have their 2 numbers retired. Great storyline there with Kevin Turner. You talked about it a bit there in the first hour, Luke.
I mean, I've met Kevin Turner a couple of times, super guy, and it's such a tragedy what has been going on with him, but he's a fighter, and he's out there, trying his best to spread the word about ALS and get some contribution. He's just a great guy.
Our local area teams here in the Tallapoosa County region had a great night last night. We'll start with Benjamin Russell High School. They take down Eufaula 55-0, allow 14 yards of total offense there in the football game. Tyree Gray was outstanding. Our player of the game was Q Johnson. He had 2 interception returns for a touchdown. We had 3 total as Orlando Henderson had 1 also. So it was an outstanding night for the Wildcats. Horseshoe Bend takes down Lafayette 14-0 last night. Childersburg also blanks Dable blanks Childersburg 15-0 last night. So our 3 local area teams that we cover the most all had shutouts last night defensively, so a good night if you're a local high school football fan.
Definitely, and something about that Dadeville-Childersburg game, both those teams had also lost to Reeltown. Reeltown, who didn't play last night, Coach Jackie O'Neill, his squad looking very strong. We had an interview with him on the show last night. But that's a team that if you put them in the local scoreboard, they're probably in the win column too, so you feel a little bit better about how things are around
You
here.
definitely do. And one other Tallapoosa County team, Tallahassee, continues their strong play. A player that has a chance to be one of the top players. He is one of the top players in the state of Alabama and has a chance to make a number of all-state teams and potentially Alabama-Mississippi all-star team. I think Brandon Baines, the running back at Tallahassee, pull up his stat line every week, and he's got a 60-plus yard touchdown run, a 70-plus yard touchdown run. He's an outstanding back over there at Tallahassee, so if you're looking for a place to go watch a good football game, Tallahassee is always a great place to go do that. If you've got comments from last night, we'd love to hear from you, 256-234-6221. Also, we talked about in the first hour with the high school ranks, it seems like Class 7A, the gap between Hoover and the rest of Class 7A is closing in quickly, it seems to me, Luke.
It has closed, and some people may like that. I don't. I loved having Hoover up there as the shining beacon and everybody going after them. I would prefer to have one awesome team. I wish Hoover had won the 2 games that were out of state against the team out of Miami. Was it Miami Central and then Colquitt County, Georgia?
Yes.
I wish they'd won both of those. So it looked like Hoover was still up there. And then when somebody beats them in the playoffs, it's even that much better. Right now, whoever wins the state championship, if it's not Hoover, I can guarantee you the first thing people will say was, you played a non-vintage Hoover team.
256-234-6221. Luke, I'd like your – we're only a couple of weeks into the season, college football season I'm moving to. Which SEC teams that are sitting there in the middle do you think have a chance to move up to the top? 2 that I'll bring up to you that I'd like your response on, mainly because they're both on Auburn and Alabama's schedule every year, so they're always of interest. Ole Miss and Mississippi State, just your thoughts initially.
I think both of the – Mississippi State didn't look that great against UAB, but I think UAB is going to prove to be a much better ball club, and I don't think Mississippi State factored in that UAB was going to play that much harder. I mean, they had such an easy time the previous week with USM that I felt like they thought they could roll the ball out there and just blow UAB's doors off. And UAB's come in with a new attitude. Give Bill Clark tons of credit. Ole Miss, yeah, they beat up on Vandy last week. Guess what? Massachusetts beating up on Vandy. So those 2 teams, we may be overhyping them. But I'll say this, on the hoof, Ole Miss's defense looks better than any defense in this conference. I include Alabama.
Score updates quickly. Shocker going on at Virginia Tech. East Carolina leads Virginia Tech 21-0. That one's still in the first.
Ohio State ought to move 3 more points down just because of that.
It should,
right now.
You should look
Re-rank
through
them
this.
right now.
Massachusetts leads Vandy in the early going 14-0. Wow, what a cellar dweller this Vandy is. Look out.
SEC.
800-782-0108. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
In the birthday month.
3. You got a minute. 3, 2, 1.
Only a couple of minutes left here on the program. Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Thanks for tuning in. Love for you to come out to JR's, have a great lunch. $6.99 snack wing basket with a tea is the special. A lot of you out there with jamboree games here locally, bring your kids out in uniform. They'll eat off the kids' menu for $1.99.
What lasts longer, the rest of this show or Derek Mason's career?
Derek Mason may not make it through half the season.
Down 14-0 to Massachusetts. He had a true freshman come and start today. Has already taken him out, so he burned his redshirt possibility. Brilliant.
We've got a busy week upcoming next week. We'll start up Tuesday. We'll have Sports Call from 4 to 6 out here at JR's. Then moving into the Lake Martin Sports Roundup from 6 to 7 with host Scott Hardy. That's live on location here. And then Sports Blitz live on Tuesday night from 7 to 9. You can tune all of those programs either in 97.5 Kowaliga Country here in the local market, 93.9 or 95.9 over in the Auburn Opelika area. We want to thank you for tuning in. For our producer, Daniel, as well, Daniel Vest, and our producer, Justin Clayton, back there in the studio, Luke Robinson. I'm Randy Lee saying thanks for tuning in to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown.
You're out.